Well, as you know, my father was my idol growing up. He was my hero, and everyone has a worst fear, and the worst fear in my life was having to do the eulogy at my father's funeral, and we were exceptionally close. And my uncle, who was a post commander in the Michigan State Police, kind of grew into basically the elder statesman, the caretaker of our family, and so I was a head coach at Central Michigan, and we had a good football team that year, a team that finished top 25 in the country with a victory over Michigan State. And I knew that year was going to be special. And we started training camp, and I'll never forget it. I got a phone call from my uncle. It was the first day of practice in August, and he said, "Your father's been rushed to the hospital, and you have to make a family decision whether to keep him alive and put him on a respirator." And so everything kind of happened at once. And so you talk about being blindsided. So my mom's on the phone, she's crying. I talked to the nurse. So it's one of those game day decisions you have to make, split second decisions. And I said, let's slow down, let's wait, let me gather my thoughts, and I will be there. And it was about a little over a 2 hour ride. So I'll never forget walking into the hospital. So long story short, made a decision to keep him on the respirator. And he was in the hospital for about 18 days. And everything is about mentoring young adults. And a lot of times in today's youth, if something goes wrong, if there's a death in the family, they shut their own lives down. They become paralyzed because of it. And so I wanted to prove to our players for many years down the road that I could handle my worst nightmare, and my father being in the hospital, and also manage our football team. And I'm proud to say I did not miss one practice, did not miss one team meeting, and I did not miss one day with my father. So as soon as the evening concluded, I'd get in the car, I'd drive, I'd stay the night in the hospital, and I would drive back the next day. And it kind of became a source of strength for our players. And with my dad being on the respirator, they'd have his hands tied down to the bed, and he'd start kicking it. He'd be giving me one of these, telling me, "Don't worry about me, go back to work." And so after the 18 days, he became better, and he went off the machine. And so it worked out on the calendar that he was going to go home that weekend. They took him off on Friday, and we had a day off on Friday, and we were scrimmaging that Saturday. So I was able to spend the entire Friday night with my father in the hospital. We spoke all night. He would not let me sleep. And he kept interrupting me and how am I doing and talking about memories. So his biggest fear was he didn't want to go to a nursing home. And so I left that day, and I said, "Dad, I'll be back to take you home." And the nurse follows me out, and she says, "Your dad's going to have to go to a nursing home because he's been bedridden for over 18 days. And I said, "Well, first of all, it's going to be a rehabilitation center." And so I left and went to practice, and I had another phone call from my uncle and said, "Your father only has so many hours to live. He's made a turn for the worse." So I drove back and was with him through the night when he passed. And so now reality hits that I'm doing the eulogy at my father's funeral. And I'll never forget, our entire senior class of that football team showed up for my dad's funeral. And I made it through it. I did it, and they had a 7-gun salute at his funeral. Our entire senior class was there. So when my father passed, I asked our nurse, who was a great family friend, to cut off his ID band, and I carried it in my pocket on game day. And so that's kind of a source of strength for me. And so the first part of the ID band is we go, and so our team kind of, was in it with me. So we go play Michigan State, who was ranked top 25 in the country in a sold out 80,000 plus stadium that Central Michigan had no chance of winning. And I felt a different presence on our sideline the entire day. I was calm. I was poised. I thought our football team was poised. And we score at the end of the game. And we had to make a decision to go for 2 points to win it, or to go for one and go to overtime. And I had the decision to go for 2 points to win the game, but I did not have a good feeling in my stomach, and I just didn't feel right. But we went for it, and unfortunately we did not make it. So we're down, and we have to try an onside kick. Now, we have not recovered an onside kick, not even in practice, for 3 years. And so I just remember a piece amongst our sideline, a workmanlike approach. And we kick the onside kick, and the kick makes a miraculous bounce, and it lands in the hands of our wide receiver uh, right there, unimpeded. And so we drive the ball and we get ourselves in field goal range. And so we're going to kick the game-winning field goal, Michigan State, 5 seconds left on the clock, and they call timeout, and I could see the panic and nervousness in our players as they huddled around me. So I took out my dad's ID band and I said, hey guys, you know what this is? This is my dad's. All you got to worry about is just protecting. We're going to be fine. We're going to win this football game. So I look over through the corner of my eye, and our senior place kicker, Andrew Aguila, is pacing back and forth in anxiousness and nervousness. So I walked over. I said, hey, open your hand up. And he opens his hand up, and I put my dad's ID band in his hand. I said, you know what that is? That's my dad's. I said, all you got to worry about is kick it, and my dad will take care of the rest. And if you YouTube it, you'll see it. He kicks the kick. It's going wide left. It sails in and just makes it through the upright, and Central Michigan wins the game. And so that was the story of my dad's ID band. But more so than that, every time an individual on that football team has some type of family crisis, they call me because they saw the way I handled that with my father. And I thought that was a great illustration to be able to mentor these kids for life. And that's part of what we do in our football program.